So, what's the last Cronenberg movie that everyone here liked? Everyone praises The Fly. Which, I get, pretty universally loved body horror movie. Awesome. It came out in 1986. I really liked, and I think a lot of other people really liked, Eastern Promises and A History of Violence.
That's for blasphemy.
I know, they aren't horror. Don't worry, I'm not here to review those. But the point is that they were good, and the more recent of the two came out 16 years ago. I hear nobody saying anything about his most recent stuff. Except for me, of course, when I reviewed Crimes of the Future, which wasn't a horrible movie, but it wasn't really that good. Plus, it was marketed as a horror movie, and I will go as far as to say, was a lie. Not a horror movie. Anyone who says otherwise definitely didn't see the movie, and if they did, I defy you to explain what it means to be a horror movie and then explain exactly how that movie was a horror movie. Anyways, the point is, today we were talking about Infinity Pool, which is written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg, David Cronenberg's son. If you are a big fan of Possessor, he's the guy who directed and wrote that. Now, am I saying that if you liked Possessor, you'll like Infinity Pool?
No. No.
I'll start with only addressing what we know from the trailer and then go into spoilers afterwards and timestamp it. Now, if you think trailers spoil too much, we are on the same boat.
I hate you!
But I will be going over what is in the trailer, and thanks to the trailer, we know what the main plot and premise of the movie is. There is no crazy plot twist here. If you saw the trailer, you know exactly what you're getting into, which is what I'm going to be going over. Let's get spooky. Infinity Pool is an artsy movie. You get that impression from the first scene with the way that it's shot, the colors, the dialogue. Like, this movie has its head up its own asshole. I'll give it some credit. It's quite not at the level of like Only God Forgives, where it's just so much quiet with very little substance. There is substance in this film, but not much. Anyways, I'm ranting. The movie focuses on James Foster, played by everyone's favorite berserker. He is still in good shape, but not nearly as good as when he was the Northman, which is a fucking travesty. But he is on vacation with his rich wife, M. Foster, played by Cleopatra Coleman, who is planning on entering in the Guinness Book of World Records for the biggest lips on a woman ever. They are vacationing in a foreign country on a private resort. There they meet Gabby, played by Mia Goth.
I love you, Daddy, but this is no way to live.
She is a big fan of James's book that he wrote some time ago. She is also on vacation with her husband, Albin. They invite them off the resort for a little fun and get into some big trouble on the way back. They think that they get away with it, but it turns out that the local authorities are aware of what James did, and it's actually punishable by death. However...
Oh man, there's always a catch.
There is another option. You can have a double take your place, be convinced that they are the guilty ones, and then have them killed. The whole movie spirals after the execution because James and M are forced to watch. So the movie is essentially about what would you do if you could do anything without any consequences? How dark would you go? What would you do? What wouldn't you do? Which is a very interesting concept, but the more interesting aspects of the movie aren't fleshed out enough. They're in a country where they have some super fucking futuristic technology where they can essentially create life, but very little is explored about it. And when it comes to the physical aspect of a horror movie, I definitely wanted to know more about this tech and what are the limits it can actually go to. Is it just an excuse to get a bunch of money from rich people who visit their country? It just seems like an afterthought on something that should have taken up at least 50% of the movie. Obviously, the main focus is on the psychological aspect of truly being able to do whatever and have no consequences, and to watch your death happen for the crimes that you committed will definitely make you feel a little invincible. But there are moments in the movie where it completely lost me in the aspect that there should have been consequences to some of the things that happened. There was even a moment where something actually happened to one of the rich people, but it gets brushed off like it didn't even happen or wasn't a big deal, which is a bit ridiculous even in this fictional world displayed before me. There was also another moment of ridiculousness, but I won't go into detail in this section. The acting is good, which isn't surprising, but Mia Goth's acting at some points were so over the top, and it was shit. There really is no other way to describe it. This movie is very artsy, and it is very similar to Possessor in that regard. What I mean by that is that if you are prone to seizures from bright rapid lights and flashes, there are a few times that happens in this film, and it's so impactful that it'll fucking kill you. I mean, I joke around, but I'm also serious. It's pretty extreme. And going off on the art, there were some moments during its seizure-inducing scenes that went from artistic to...
What the f*** am I looking at?
And sadly for the ending, it happens again. Speaking of the ending, it's kind of bullshit. I understand that some people who do this stuff regularly would treat it like it's the Purge night, where the night before they are torturous monsters, and the next morning they're like, hey neighbor, sorry about what I did to your dad last night, but... are we still good for bingo on Tuesdays? No, just no fucking way. That would carry over into your normal life unless you were an actual sociopath. And an actual sociopath wouldn't be as giddy or happy with what goes on like the people in this film. Kind of like in The Batman, where Robert Pattinson really is into being the Batman at night, but in the morning, he's the physical embodiment of a 16-year-old goth who resents his parents for making him go to school.
A goth believes that deep down the world is totally f***ed up. But an emo thinks that deep down, they are totally f***ed up.
That's not much of a difference.
That's a huge f***ing difference! Okay, look.
Which makes complete sense. I know the Batman is supposed to be a billionaire playboy by day, but living the night as the Batman would absolutely bleed over into your day life if your goal is to have a more realistic story. Now, there are different categories of horror movies like lowbrow, casual watch, high quality, highbrow, then higher brow. This was definitely higher brow horror. Is there anything wrong with that? No, but that definitely means that this movie isn't for everyone. Rotten Tomatoes critics put this currently at 89% and the audience is at 55%. I'm more in the middle on this one, like between 65 to 70, but definitely not higher than 70. This is a one and done, and no movie that I consider a one and done will ever be higher than 70. Hell, I should probably be more critical and say like 65 or 60. Okay, so now I'm going into spoilers, and please feel free to leave a comment about what you thought of the movie, like, subscribe, and all that other horse shit. But more importantly, I'd like to ask, do y'all want me to keep the same format of starting with no spoilers then going into spoilers? Or should I just do one or the other? I'm curious, because I definitely have all you little monsters on my mind when I do this. So the movie starts off just like I said. One rich couple meets another rich couple on a vacation and want to become buddies. Clearly, they didn't see my review for Speak No Evil. So they go and have a beach day off the resort, and we get treated to a scene where James is taking a piss, and we see the pee hit the rocks. I guess for the sake of art, and then Gabby sneaks up behind him for a little surprise yank, and we see his jizz hit the rocks. I guess for the sake of art? Who the fuck needs to see either of those shots? You could easily cut out those specific shots and we would know exactly what is still happening. Anyways, they get super drunk and chill till the evening and then drive back. James drives because he's feeling a little bit more sober than everyone else thanks to Gabby giving him a little bit of a wake-up call. He's driving on the road, but the car's headlights keep going off and on, and he hits a farmer and kills him. James and Em want to call the cops. Gabby says, fuck no. In a country like this, all the cops are pieces of shit and they would rape and or kill them for what happened. So they need to GTFOH ASAP. So they make it back to the resort and are able to get through the gate even though they weren't supposed to be out. Everything seems to be fine, but next morning, James and Em get hauled into the police station fortress to be interrogated. Yeah, they're screwed. When they get there, the guy in charge breaks down that the laws in the country state that the oldest son of the killed father has the legal right to kill James even though it was an auto accident. Which, I mean, a little barbaric, but they did flee the scene and attempted to not suffer any penalty for the death. But the guy says that if he has the funds, he can pay for a double. The double would take his place and be convinced of the crimes and then be executed. James signs it, not really taking in exactly what is going to happen, but he knows full well that his wife has has the cashish to take care of all of his problems. So he makes the payment and goes through the process of being essentially cloned, and it's on the same level of weird artsy shit of Possessor. Then it's explained that James and M must watch his clone's death. They watch it and a weird gentle smirk comes across James's face as his clone is being gutted in front of him. Been there a million times, my friend. After the whole thing is over, James is given an urn with his clone's ashes in it as a little keepsake. Aw, how thoughtful. So M obviously wants to bounce the next morning, and James hesitantly says, okay, let's go. Oh, babe, I can't find my passport. Yeah, the second he said that, I knew that he didn't lose it. The movie portrays that maybe he did really lose it, or maybe someone took it, but I never believed that. He was just looking for an excuse to stay. And it ends up working. Also, lucky for James, the room that they were in is free for the rest of the month, so he keeps it for at least the rest of the week. That night, Gabby invites James to meet her other rich friends who are also aware of the body double program that the country has for the rich people who use it to essentially fuck around in their country. Not what I would do if I had that kind of power, land, technology, but whatever. Gabby's husband tells the story of how his company was building a nearby infinity pool. An accident happened and it led to the deaths of 2 people, and now he and Gabby are part of the gang. This is the only mention of an infinity pool in this movie, and if you take the name at face value, I guess it makes sense why the movie is called Infinity Pool, but it's a bit of a stretch and it's hard to forget, what an actual infinity pool is. Anyways, from here on out, it's pretty obvious where the movie is going. The movie is going to essentially be The Purge. Small group of people feel invincible because their actions don't really have consequences, and because of it, they're going to do some fucked up shit. In their little horseshoe of friends, one of them asks James, do you think you are the original or the clone? See, that is a very good question to ask in this kind of a film. But I'm just gonna say, it goes nowhere, and that's part of the disappointment in the film. They have practically unlimited access to a cloner, but we know practically dick about it. Can it clone anybody at any part of their lives? How long can these clones exist if they aren't killed mere minutes after they are born? Do they have the memories of the originals? Is it possible that any of our characters are the clones and not the originals? Who came up with this technology? And why? What's the end game here? But the movie doesn't want to focus on that boring shit, so we move along. And we move along to some bullshit. Okay, so they go on a little light theft mission. There is a high-ranking police officer that got a medal, and they want to get the medal. So they put on these local ritualistic masks that put the Purge masks to shame. These things are creepy as fuck and are probably the best part of the film. So they go to this guy's house. He is in the middle of banging either his wife or some chick. They grab everyone in the house and put these clothed, half-naked, and fully naked people on their knees in the middle of the living room. A security guard in the back starts to open fire. Bullets are flying. Gabby's husband gets hit in the leg. The security guy dies, and the policeman's wife or mistress gets shot and dies. The next scene, the group are waiting for the cloning process, and the main detective comes in and says that they are treating their country like a playground and think a demonstration is in order. So they take them all, and they're gonna get some throat slicing done.
Oh! Oh, yes!
So our group is finally going to get their comeuppance, and as bodies are hitting the floor, we zoom out and they are all in the audience cheering on the show.
What? Oh, come on!
Really? I could kind of get that they were able to get away with killing a random civilian or whatever, but they humiliated a high-ranking officer and got his chick shot and killed, and there are 0 consequences? This is bullshit. Also, you would think that after Gabby's husband got shot in the leg, it would be like his wake-up call. He would be like, nah, we've had enough fun and we actually aren't invincible, so I'm calling it.
But no!
Nothing happened. No change in his character at all. Fucking ridiculous. The next day, Emma's had enough and is ready to leave without James. But James has not had his fill just yet and places on the shelf his second urn. So later that night, of course, he and Gabby bang, and after she convinces him to take some serious hallucinogen, it turns into some weird orgy with a lot of strobes, weird scenes, and don't get me wrong, I like artsy things, but things that are more impactful and have a bit more meaning. But But this stuff is just being weird for weird's sake. There is no connection from these quick cut scenes to anything that he's really doing except for the sex part in the orgy. There's nothing from his later on dream, his cloning, or the drug trips to connect him to something that's actually happening in the world where he didn't realize what he was really doing. And the shock and off-balance feeling of some of these random cuts and flashes haven't worked since Willy Wonka. There's a scene where a nipple grows and stretches out and then it gets bitten off.
What the f am I looking at?
After the previous night, James has gone full dick mode and is literally spitting food at random people at the resort. By the way, there is a lot of drooling from James in this movie, and it's pretty distracting at times. He is told by one of his new friends that in order to fix his passport problem, they have to actually fuck with a head detective at the police station. So they go, put a bag over his head, beat him, piss on him, and then James takes off the hood and it turns out it's an actual clone of himself, and he properly nopes out of that situation. Everyone else gets bummed because they thought it was a funny joke. That evening, James goes into his bathroom and pulls out his passport from behind the toilet. Ah, you see? I knew he didn't really lose it, but it does add a bit more to the previous scene. He knew that he had his passport, and yet his friends lied to him about the detective having it and went ahead with the plan to fuck with that other guy. The guy who's in charge of the duplicating them and annulling them of their crimes. Not really the guy you want to fuck around with. He gets on the shuttle for the airport and his new friends catch up to him. He gets on the shuttle for the airport the next morning and his new friends catch up to him. Shoot at the bus to stop it and force him off. They force him to walk as the cars slowly follow behind him, and Gabby really bursts out with her maliciousness. She admits that she never read his book, which is what intrigued him about her in the beginning, was that she said she was a big fan. Then she points out that the book was shit, it was written 6 years ago, and he hasn't done dick since. Then she starts to read some of the reviews of people shitting on his book. Brutal stuff. It's in these few moments that Mia Goth's acting skills really dip. She is way over the top sadistic and it seems fake as shit. She drops her wine bottle and James takes this opportunity to run back to the car and grabs the gun she has and fails.
What? Oh, come on!
How could you fuck this up? And how could you give up so quickly? He barely tries. And as far as we know, this is the only gun the group has. This is his best shot. Fucking act like it. And shit, while this is happening, she scoffs and laughs at his attempts instead of, worrying about that he's gonna grab the gun and turn it on you. Anyways, he takes off running, she shoots at him and hits him in the leg, but he's able to hop towards a nearby town. He passes out, has a weird dream, and wakes up to the group surrounding the place. They tell James that they will let him go, but he has to kill a dog. They bring out the dog, and it's a broken clone version of James walking on all fours and acting like a dog, just not in the badass way. They give James a knife and he refuses to use it and tosses it aside. But the dog attacks James nonetheless, and James beats the thing's skull in with his bare hands. He weeps on his knees, and good old Gabby springs into action, takes the blood from his hands and smears it on her tit, and has James suck on her blood-covered tit.
What the f am I looking at?
Seriously, the fuck is this? Why is this? Next morning, James is apologetic to Em, and it sounds like she is going to take him back. He leaves for the shuttle with his group of friends, and they are all talking like normal, rich, white-collared people. At the airport, Gabby's husband shakes his hand and says, "I hope to see you next year." Gabby just says goodbye. No hug, kiss on the cheek, nothing. Like nothing happened. A complete disconnect since they are on their way out of there. Remember my bingo on Tuesdays joke from earlier? James looks at his ticket to leave, and I don't recall if there was anything special stated on the ticket. Let me know if you all know what I missed. But the movie ends with a shot at the resort. Everyone is gone. The rainy season is here, and James is back at the resort, getting soaked in the rain, bleakly looking forward, and the movie ends. This movie could have been so much more. They could have gone deeper into its more interesting aspects and actually fucked with us a bit, or had a more impactful message. But there isn't much to be said about this or talked about, and it very easily could, which is very disappointing. It's a one and done. I've already said enough to the people who have stuck around. Thanks always for watching, and stay spooky.